Right, here we are again. I am on time, actually. I was just looking in the live chat, so I'm going to start with something that is very much related to the topic we're going to look at, but somebody made a comment about the Vatican, and therefore I'm just going to include a very brief, opinion on that. So if you remember last November, Pope Francis, who is the Pope, the head of Catholicism, for the very first time, he called China's Muslim Uyghurs, who everybody has heard of, a persecuted people. And that's something he's been being urged to do by like human rights advocates, etc., for many years now. However, during that Easter blessing in which he made those remarks, during the Easter blessing which he gave subsequently, he doesn't say anything about Chinese Christians. He hasn't said anything actually about their plight, which is getting worse and worse by the day. And of course, in 2018, he made a deal with China, which was subsequently China reneged on its agreement and vetoed any papal blessing or disputing of new Catholic bishops within the country. So, yeah, he's pretty, well done to him for calling out the persecution of these Muslims who are most certainly being persecuted in China. But it's amazing to me, at least, that the most well-known Christian, the advocate for the largest number of Christians of the same denomination, etc., in the world, has yet to even acknowledge the plight of all Christians, Catholic or not. But Catholicism is, I believe, the most popular form of Christianity in China. However, let's get on to the main shebang, as it were. So the arrest and the secret trial of 4 Chinese Christians for selling audio Bibles that happened in December of 2020 in Shenzhen, which is in China, is one of the latest illustrations of how serious the communist government, the CCP within China, is in their quest to stamp out Christianity in its current form, at least. So they're not openly declaring that they do not wish Christianity in the country, but we'll see what they are desirous of. So these 4 Chinese citizens, face jail terms of up to 5 years, which isn't particularly harsh in terms of Chinese sentencing. It is for the charges, but a 5th Chinese Christian who was the owner of the company that produced and sold digital Bible players also faces a similar custodial sentence. Their lawyers and their families are being pressured by Chinese authorities to keep this matter quiet, which in and of itself is highly suspicious. To be charitable about it. The authorities are seemingly intent on ensuring that the matter is not highlighted in the Western media anywhere. However, it did leak, the story, obviously, because I'm relaying it to you, and it was taken by the Christian media, at least in the United States, which is an embarrassment to China, quite frankly. So you may have heard this word before. Under the Sinicization of religion policy of Mr. Xi Jinping, the authorities have, since 2018, the same year that they made the deal with the Pope, or the Vatican more correctly, they've launched a crusade to keep Chinese Christians at home and away from their churches and their pastors. And that's at the nice end of the spectrum, quite frankly. Thousands of churches have been either closed or demolished or transformed into offices. So this is not any sort of benign wish to just keep religion out of the public eye, as it were. Christian priests now need licenses to practice their religion, and Christians need prior permission by the authorities to hold any form of religious congregation. We saw, I believe I reported on it at the time, a mother's meeting, a literal mother's meeting, being raided by the CCP and their employees. It's outstanding, minutia. They just want all forms of the truth to be quelled, and anyone who's even remotely associated with the truth. So monotheists, even though they're not worshipping our God, are also being heavily persecuted in the form of Muslim Chinese people. So even when they have these licenses, by the way, they can only congregate in specified places, but not necessarily churches, as they're mostly being demolished, etc., by these licensing authorities who have the final say. And the latest barrage, basically, is in the form of pressuring Christians to post online messages. You'll love this one. You won't love it, but can you believe the absolute cheek of this? Encouraging, pressuring, etc., Christians to post online messages stating that they have denounced Christianity and their faith. It's unbelievable. One can only imagine how they're being pressured. So the biggest, however, anti-Christ or anti-Christian campaign by the CCP relates to a literal ban on the Bible. Anybody carrying a physical also now, so it was online Bibles, now it's come out into the real or non-electronic world. So anybody carrying a Bible faces immediate arrest and a jail term. It's just so satanic. Visitors entering China also face the same punishment. That I presume would include the Pope if he ever graced them with his presence. So except licensed priests, licensed by the CCP within the Chinese Communist state, other than those people, nobody is expected or allowed to own a Bible. And now they can only be sold in state-affiliated church bookshops. People cannot print the Bible, record it onto CDs, publish it on the internet. And the CCP encourages people in a way that is reminiscent of the Stasi, I guess, to spy on Christians, to identify those who may be hiding or illegally storing Bibles. And it will become clear why that's so. So in the churches that still stand in China, the walls are defaced after the authorities wiped out the verses from the Bible that had been painted on them. And instead, they've been ordered to put up official posters that feature verses which reflect the principles of socialism, like prosperity, communist party-loving, dedication, patriotism. So as we saw in the video I made the other day about Marxism in the church, even Engels came out and said that any Christians who believe that the Bible is in support of Marxism or the Communist Manifesto are in error. And that's one of the founding members of that political movement. So the CCP also, this is just not a throwaway segment. This is like half the crux of it. They have, it's unthinkable really. They are bringing out, they are modifying, editing, corrupting the Bible in order to bring out a communist version of a portion of the Bible. So in 2019, so this is a year after the Vatican and China were friendly, chums. The CCP declared that it would bring out an official communist translation of the Bible as part of an exercise evaluating all religious texts to look for content that does not conform to communist ideology. Have you ever heard such? Right, it's just reprehensible. And any content that is considered, obviously subjectively, to be incompatible with socialist views, although, spoiler alert, the Bible is not compatible with socialist values, and that's why I oddly agree with Friedrich Engels on that count, it will be amended accordingly. Well-known Italian sociologist of religions and somebody who watches China quite closely is named Massimo I'm so sorry, Italy. Intravene, potentially. Sounds like a form of administering medicine. But he wrote this in Bitter Winter, which is a religious liberty and human rights magazine, basically. He said this: mobilizing Jesus for the CCP propaganda is blasphemous and is offensive to Christians. Yet we can expect more such distortions as religious scriptures are gradually cynicized. Sorry, I was just listening out to see if the Pope had said anything about that yet. I don't believe that he has. So, just where do you go with this? Where do you go with this? Just where? What he couldn't have imagined, the writer of those words, is that the CCP, they're changing stories from the Bible itself. So the UK-based Church Times, which is a decent publication, by the way, reported the controversy last October, and they said this: the book uses the story of the woman caught in adultery who is presented to Christ by the crowd from chapter 8 of John. In the story, the crowd wanted to stone the woman as per their law, but Jesus said, "Let the one who has never sinned throw the first stone." Hearing this, they slipped away one by one. So in John's gospel, the story concludes, when Jesus had lifted up himself and saw none but the woman, he said unto her, "Woman, where are thine accusers? Hath no man condemned thee?" She said, No man has, Lord. And Jesus said unto her, "Neither do I then condemn thee. Go and sin no more." So the newspaper reports that the punchline, this is the punchline basically, the textbook version now states, when the crowd disappeared, Jesus stoned the sinner to death, saying, "I too am a sinner. But if the law could only be executed by men without blemish, the law would be dead." I'm just going to run through that real quickly again because lol. Right, here we go. Right, this is the new ending. I don't think it's going to catch on somehow, but when the crowd disappeared, right, we've got that far, so they're all gone now. Jesus has drawn his line. He's getting up again. Jesus stoned the sinner to death, saying this blasphemous twaddle, this absolute outrage, apart from he's already been made a murderer, but let's just put that to one side. He said this, which should actually tick off Muslims as well, to be fair. "I too am a sinner, but if the law could only be executed by men without blemish, the law would be dead." So they've half got it right, because Jesus was a sinless man who did nullify the law. So Catholics in China, I can't get over that. That is just unreal. So what arrogance. Okay, so Catholics in China, not the Vatican. Sorry, you may have misheard me. I didn't say Rome. What I said was in China, those same Chinese brothers and sisters of ours who are at risk of immediate incarceration, torture, and much worse. They all rose as one in protest. However, it was irrelevant. It didn't avail them anything. They petitioned the Vatican to intervene. Can you believe it? But no, not only, it's not even like the Vatican ignored their pleas. The Vatican refused to help them. So the Vatican is, by its silence, I guess, there's a tacit approval somehow to portraying Jesus as a sinner and a murderer. Unreal. So ironically, around the same time, the Vatican decided to renew this controversial deal with China, in which China recognizes the authority of the Pope within the Roman Catholic Church and his final say over China's bishops. And in return, the Vatican recognizes the legitimacy of the bishops previously appointed by the Chinese government, but subsequently excommunicated by the church. So this obviously was reneged quite well. China paid absolutely no attention, just smiled, nodded, shook hands, signed pieces of paper, and then went about their business, quite frankly. And Xi Jinping, who is the president and leader of the the CCP, is expected to bring in policies to further target Christians, just as the Uyghur and the, I can't pronounce that, it's only 3 letters, Hui, Muslims are being robbed of their right to religion and their religion, quite frankly. Whilst the Muslims are being forced to erase everything, their culture, their language, their rituals, their custom, including their religion, potentially mostly important for them, Chinese Christians are spared at the moment but they will eventually be forced to follow Christianity as defined by the Communist Party. And you can see how that's just a ridiculously slippery slope. Because if Jesus can be made a murderer in the Gospel of John, which has the highest Christology, I mean, who knows, quite frankly. Please, please, please pray for Chinese Christians. I just keep thinking, I've got it on my head in a loop. I saw a video of Chinese, like secret believers, I guess they are, receiving hard copies of Bibles prior to the ban. And they were so elated. They were just overjoyed. And it was so touching that I think I shared it. I can't remember where I shared it, on one of my like WhatsApp or something like that. And I shared it not because of the plight of Chinese Christians, but just to remind people how precious the gospel is, for those of us who are used to, maybe finding it in hotel rooms, etc., and, having multiple copies at home, hopefully, and reading them, by the way. So Xi was behind a document which was released by China's state admin for religious affairs that said the biggest task in the field of religion is to promote, wait for it, Chinese-style Christianity and theology. And in order to do this, the Bible must be reinterpreted. This document, which is called Principle for Promoting Chinese Christianity in China for the next 5 years, 2018 to 2022, although I doubt that's what they call it, that's the English version, was launched in Nanjing in 2018. So they've still got a year to go, a year and, whatever, less than a year potentially, depending on when this was released. And Xi may come up with the next phase of Sinicization as early as next year. So we'll all be on the edge of our seats for that. And why actually is China so terrified of Christianity? I'm going to go from the report that I'm reading, but I'm going to certainly give my own views if this writer doesn't. Experts on China, I'm not one of them, say that Xi Jinping is getting back at the Christians for the exploitation of China by the Christian West since the time of the first European settlers over 600 years ago. Christopher Smith threw a hint about Xi's anti-Christian mentality during his deposition before the Congressional Executive Commission on China in 2015. So this was prior to this 5-year plan thing. He referred to Xi Jinping's visit to the US several years ago and asked a solitary question, which was, why do so many Chinese students studying in the United States become Christian? I could give it a decent answer. Smith told the commission religion was on President Xi's mind that day. So Chinese authorities are frightened by the simple proposition that individuals have the right to live out their beliefs openly and peacefully without fear of any intimidation. Quite right. It's counterproductive because religious restrictions within China make China less stable. So it's like a spiral that's not beneficial at all. Repression can exacerbate extremism and cause instability, basically, and targeting peaceful religions and peaceful religious citizens, and I'm basically including Christianity in that at the moment, undermines the legitimacy of the state because it reminds even those who do not believe of the capricious nature of the state, which is quite right. And this was like some sort of prophecy, basically, because this was prior to the implementation of this, these new rules. The Wall Street Journal observed in late 2020 that Xi was wary of the growing Christian population in China. And the article read, from an estimated 3 million believers at the end of the Cultural Revolution, the number of Protestants in China is now believed to exceed 100 million, with another 10 million to 12 million Catholics. So I was in error, at least at the date of writing that. Protestantism seems to outstrip Catholicism, as it should. I'm only teasing. So is that at the root of his fear of Christianity? is it simply a case of blatant antichrist spirit, like anti-Christianity, literally antichrist stuff? He doesn't seem to want to say. His thoughts can only really be interpreted by his government's anti-Christ or anti-Christian actions. The Wall Street Journal says this fear is not isolated. China's rulers witnessed how the strong example, this is a direct quote, of Pope John Paul II contributed to the collapse of communism within Poland. And they were quite frankly aghast at the role that South Korean Christians played in that country's transition to democracy. So in recent times, Chinese authorities were angered by the local Christians' prominent role in the Hong Kong democracy movement. That's a whole in-depth, nuanced subject, which I can go into, quite frankly, but not at this moment. So Xi appears determined to correct these wrongs, if those are his motivating factors, pretty quickly. 5 short years outlawing the Bible. If that's not satanic, I just don't know what is at this point. I'm back on the live stream. I'm just going to okay some comments because I don't think there are any admins here. So anyway, little message to the Pope if he ever gets them. What you doing, lovey? What are you doing? There's Christians out there suffering, being incarcerated, being tortured, being pressurized, I would say forced, to publicly denounce Christ. And they have, as one body, of which we are actually members as well, but as one unit, they have asked the Vatican for help. And the Pope may have been like in the bathroom at the time. I don't know. Maybe he was busy enough to say, no, we won't do that. So, I'm not being particularly anti-Pope or anti-Catholic. I'm not anti-Catholic, but I can sometimes be a bit down on the Pope. And afraid he's not in a very good light at this point. He can redeem himself, obviously, by the blood of Christ. But yeah, hopefully he pulls his finger out pretty soon, because China has many Christians, Protestants and Catholics. And at the moment, those are 2 of only, I think, 5 recognized religions in the state of China. So, they deserve our prayers, most definitely. And that's all we can do at the moment, actually. Hopefully some of them have memorized, have hidden Bibles or memorized verses, because I've often thought that there will come a time when the Bible is outlawed, even in the West. But I pray that it's not very soon. So I'm just going to have a quick squint at the live chat thingy. All right, what is anybody talking about? Are you talking to each other? Okay, then. So I don't know what just happened to my hair, but never mind. Any comments on China? Any thoughts? Anything? Otherwise, you may just continue to troll me. That would be lovely. Okie dokie. All right, then. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sign off here, and I'm going to see about... Okay, somebody in the chat has been to China. I know a friend of mine's been there as well and was treated pretty poorly. I think that may be due to the fact they're black. I'm not sure. So, do you know what? I may soon make I've been pondering, praying about potentially making a video about some pretty atrocious popes historically. I don't say that they were representatives of today's Catholicism, but it's pretty amazing to me that this divinely granted authority, which can then be passed like a parcel until the music stops, can be abused in the ways which it has been in the past. So, just for maybe historical, just so you know, really, I may get on those pretty soon. But if I do have any Catholics who are in, God bless Catholics, really. If there are any who would prefer not to see that, you can drop me a comment and maybe I can arrange for it to somehow be, put a link in so that people can see it somewhere else. So, there's loads that we could speak about Catholicism, but I don't want to get political, as it were. But I am a Protestant and I will remain one. And funnily enough, somebody was trying... A Christian brother of mine yesterday was trying to convince me, bless him, but he's not ready for what I've got, as it were. So you'll see him in Protestantism pretty soon, please God. All right, anyway, so yeah, like, share, subscribe, comment, pray for China, pray for any children there, because there are also secret believers in China whose own children are not even aware of their faith, because it's so very dangerous to have their faith, because obviously children don't always know the ramifications of their words, and they do have like a Stasi type vibe going on over there, with people informing on neighbours and family members, etc. Hi, Martin Ellen. Right. So yeah, unless anyone has any questions on either China or Catholicism at this point, I don't mind answering a couple. Free to play. I wonder who you're answering, actually, but what I would say is that Paul, the Apostle Paul, Saint Paul, he said quite famously, it's in a really good book called the Bible, he said, do not say that I follow Paul. He's speaking to Christians. Do not say that I follow Paul or I follow Apollos, for example, because I, as in Paul, didn't die for you, and neither did Apollos. Say that you follow Christ, because that's correct. So within that statement, the implication is, do not say that I follow Matthew. Do not say that I follow Peter. Do not say that do you know what I mean? Like, that is the thing. We follow Christ. We are one in Christ. Christ is the one who died for us. None of the apostles, none of the early church fathers, no one other than Christ, at least from a very Protestant point of view, will ever be a part of your redemption or any arbitration on your behalf. It will only come through Christ. And that is biblical. To say otherwise is antithetical to the Bible, and it is therefore erroneous. Anybody who believes otherwise is welcome to come ask me about it, try and change my mind, possibly, in the spirit of love that we're commanded to display to one another. So yeah, I don't know what to say. Like, I do see some pretty vehement anti-Catholic comments, and I also see anti-Orthodox and anti-Protestant, depending on which area of Discord I'm in, quite frankly. But I don't feel that way. Catholics are, I would love it. I would love it if they could, obviously, I would love it if they saw things the way I see them, because I believe that the Bible is inerrant in its first, the first version of it was inerrant, but even as it stands now, it is infallible. There is no higher authority, quite frankly. There really isn't. Obviously, that doesn't mean that God isn't over and above the Bible. That's not what it means. It also doesn't mean that everything you need is in the Bible. That's how the Roman Catholic Church sprung up in the first place, because they would seek out apostolic churches to find out if they had any idea what the apostles might have said about something that Christ hadn't covered. And obviously then the Roman Pope after the fall of Rome, the Roman Church after the fall of Rome became preeminent. Yeah, somebody's saying that they'll make Jesus a communist, as long as they don't put him in a beret. Like, I can't have like Shager Jesus like that. It's just cheesy. I don't like it. They will try. I don't know what that is, Ivan. Sorry, somebody in the chat is saying they're a prognostic Christian. What is your prognosis? Like, yeah, please do explain to me in the actual comment section, so I don't have to try and keep up with it. But yeah, they've already made Jesus a murderer. Let's remember that, because that is, I was about to swear then, that is utterly outrageous, reprehensible. I pray that they will be forgiven for it, but they'll only be forgiven for it if they accept the true Christ, who, spoiler alert for anybody I have to tell, is not a murderer, is not a liar, is nothing less than God, quite frankly. And anyone who says otherwise is in error. And that doesn't mean we have to condemn them for their ignorance or their error. That means that with love, we need to polemicize their current position, and then make some apologetics and a defense of our belief. And hopefully the Holy Spirit will move them to repentance and to salvation ultimately, because that is the aim of all of us in sharing the gospel. And as the Bible says, I'm not ashamed of the gospel, and neither should any of us be, because it's literally life-saving in ways which have eternal ramifications. Okay, so there's a little bit of Islamic polemics, as it were, polemics against Islam going on, which is quite funny, to be fair. So, yeah, I don't know. Unless anyone's got anything else to say which they'd like me to repeat, as long as it's reasonably, polite. Ivan, that's great to know. Okay, so if that's the case, I would actually like to know where that doctrine, not the doctrine, that name anyway originates. If you could let me know in the comment section, that would be great. And Christ is the living gospel. He is the good news, and therefore he is the Injil for any Muslims. He literally is the good news in and of himself. He was the light of men, and in him was life, and life eternal. How much better than that does it get? Well, it gets a lot better, the Bible, actually. It's the most beautiful book I've ever read, I know that. So he is forever, eternally Lord and Messiah and Saviour. And he also isn't ashamed to call us brothers and sisters, which is very touching, actually, because I know my own heart, or I know how it was anyway. So, apart from the one person who doesn't want China to be Christian or Christianity, because their English may be a little bit challenged, I'm not sure that China cares what they think anyway. So, if we have to balance it up, if it's like a popularity contest or an opinion forum, then I think there are more Christians who would prefer Christianity to remain unmolested, as it were, within China. And that's not to say that the plight of these Muslims who are being persecuted, that there is not harrowing and horrific. But my calling is not to publicize necessarily Muslim persecution, because it's just not what God asked me to do. But it doesn't mean I ignore it, or it isn't painful to read about. Anyway, on that really happy bombshell, I'm going to leave you all to it. I'm going to see if I can get a premiere of some description ready. If I can't, I don't know. I've got a lot of uni work to do, which, quite frankly, I'd like to be avoiding. So I may find something to do on YouTube later. All right. So God bless you. Pray for China. Keep them in your heart and in your thoughts and on your lips, the prayers. And I'll see you again soon. God bless. Bye-bye.